Alright, so now I'm going to start on the transmission, and first things first is I'm going to clean this mess up. I'm going to clean all this up. Clean everything up so when I take the sump off I don't get crud in the transmission. Clean all this up. Clean it up like I cleaned the top part of it up. Just after a couple moments of cleaning, there's some numbers there. So I'm just going to continue cleaning it up. I'll probably just clean this up with some light sandpaper when I'm done getting all the crud off. I get the corrosion and grease and crud off, and I'll wipe it with lacquer thinner and then give it a quick sanding. Okay, so I cleaned up the bottom of the transmission. And this is where cleanliness is important. You don't want to get any crud in your transmission. Take the dipstick tube off, and now I'm going to pull a sump. Hopefully all these bolts, oh wow, they're not even tight. Well, that one wasn't. Yeah, they're plenty loose, so I don't think I'll have any problems with any of them seized in the... It is a cast iron transmission. It'll be interesting how much fluid I get on the floor. That's why I put paper towels down there. Most of it stayed in the sump. There is a, no, that's just a piece of something in the sump to hold something. Alright, so now you can see why I use cardboard on the floor, right? It's probably going to drip for a while, so I'm just going to stuff that up there and try and keep that wiped up. So the shift nut is up above the valve body. So that's where the linkage comes in, and then the nut is right up in there. And I don't think I'm going to be able to get at it without removing the valve body. That's the filter screen there. It actually is in pretty good shape. Looks really good. All things considered, it's pretty clean for being 53 years old. The return line from the trans cooler. So maybe I'll tilt it down a little bit so I can get all the fluid out. I'll get a pan over here, set a pan there, and I'll get the fluid out and we'll go from there. Just to let you know, that wasn't easy turning on the camera without getting trans fluid all over it. These are covered in fluid. I think I'll just prop this with something and let it just sit here for about 10 or 15 minutes and drip out. Alright, it just wiped out pretty clean with a paper towel. So I'm going to just run it over to the parts washer and give it a good scrubbing. I took the filter off. That thing's pretty clean. I think transmission will be fine. This is the filter. Got a new filter. And cleaned up the sump and the little clip to hold the filter on. This tag was right here bolted to the sump pan. Alright, I was just trying to decipher this tag to see exactly what transmission this car has in it, since I can refer to the shop manual for the procedure to do this job. I mean, sometimes taking 10 minutes and looking through the shop manual saves you a lot of aggravation. So the tag says PCD, then a space AB, so you can see these numbers here. So none of those are, this would be a C4 automatic, and none of those numbers match. So then I go over here to this is the cruise-o-matic dual range, and again, the tag numbers here, there's no PCD there. It's definitely a PCD AB. So then I go to the transmission, which is the C6, and there's no PCD there either. So somebody may be able to tell me what transmission. It clearly says PCD AB, and then 352, and then 6D26B. So I'm assuming that's April 26, 1966, maybe the second shift, and I'm assuming that 352 means this transmission was for 352, but that ACD, AB should identify the transmission, and I see nothing in my book. And this is the factory 66 shop manual, and I see nothing in it for that transmission. The valve body needs to come off to get to that nut. The nut is, I don't know if you can see in there or not. I can't even see it. But the nut is up on that shift. It's hard to hold the camera and the tripod just doesn't work here. Let me see if I can get something to set the camera on. Well, I just don't have anything good to get good lighting in here, but you can see the control valve for the shifter. See it move? That's like low gear. That's like park. And then this other thing is that's the kickdown valve. And the nut is right there. And I don't think I'm going to be able to get that out with the valve body in, you know, to tighten and loosen that nut properly and get everything in and out without dropping things down in there. So the valve body needs to come out, and it looks like I got to take this tube out of, this is I think the pressure regulator. So this tube needs to come out, this tube needs to come off there. This nut needs to be loosened up 3 turns according to the shop manual, so these can, you know, move enough to where you can pull a valve body off these tubes to the, I think that's the forward clutch and the actuator for it. And then I can get the valve body out of there and get at all that stuff. So I think these are the bolts that hold the valve body on. I think these ones just hold it together, so I'm not going to take those ones out. Just these ones, I think, hold it on to the transmission. I just realized the camera wasn't running, but I took these 2 tubes off. This tube was in here, and this tube was in there, as you remember, and I just popped them out. And now we're to the valve body. I'm going to set these tubes in the sump so I don't step on them or anything. And now I got to loosen the servo bolt, this forward servo. It says 3 turns, and that's I assume so you can move those to get the looks like I need a bigger socket. Alright, so this bolt's got to be loosened 3 turns, so that's 1, 2, 3. Alright, and then I'll take out these bolts and we'll see what happens. And I think I'm just going to loosen them for now and see if the valve body comes. Yes, the valve body is loose now. So, can you see it move? So, those are what holds the valve body on. Hopefully I don't hear anything drop in there when I take this puppy off. Hopefully it's recording it. Sometimes I forget to push the record button. Alright, now this will clear those, I don't know if there's a place to get in here and push those tubes out or not. I guess I gotta try and keep them in the... They're definitely loose, but it's definitely not moving far enough to get the valve body out. So let me go get the shop manual and see what it says. Alright, the reason why the valve body didn't pull out was this is the manual shift valve. That's what hooks into this when you change it, the gears in the transmission. So that fell down in here and was preventing it from, I just had to push it back up in there. So the valve body's out, and now you can see what I need to do to that nut, this shaft comes out, that nut, the other shaft comes out, but the parking thing up here, I got to make sure I don't lose all that stuff. And that's where the parking, that's park, and I don't want to lose the components out of there. Okay, let me start undoing things here. The tripod just doesn't go low enough. But anyway, this is the kickdown. So I'm going to loosen up the nut for that. And the lock washer obviously on there. Take it off. Well, right to the left there. Came off at the last thread. Lock washers kind of, I don't want to drop things in there. I don't think they'll go anywhere, but I just don't want to drop things in there. I'm going to get a magnet and see if I can pull that out. There we go. Got the washer and the nut. And then this thing should come off. That's pretty simple. And then the shaft should come out. And I suspect that that's the O-ring that was leaking right there. This is really difficult to do, but there's the ball for the D-dent, and there's the thing for the, that's where the parking, that is the parking ball right there, and that's what engages it. That goes up into that to move it to park, and this is just gonna hopefully all just stay in there, and hopefully that ball, it does fire out. Hopefully I can find it. I'm gonna try and hold it just on the chance, but I got it jammed all the way to the low position, and it looks like, oh, it looks like it might not come out of there, but you know, you never know. So I'm not taking a chance on it flying, so I'm going to get ready to put my finger in there. So let me loosen up put it back in park. Oh, that wasn't too bad. It's a big nut on there. It's a 7/8 inch. That lock washer just really locking it. Whoops, there goes this is what I was trying not to have fall out, but it did. So we'll just set it aside for now, and there's probably a spring in there. There is, but it's still in the spot where it belongs. Alright, that's dropped out of the... There we go. And then we got the shift shaft out. So the O-ring goes right there. And that's where the fluid was coming between these two. And then the seal goes on that. So let me show you where the seal is. That is the seal. So let me get that out and work on putting it together. Alright, the seal just popped out. I just pulled it out with my finger. I just stuck it in there, and so maybe this was leaking. But that is those two things are what seals the shift linkage, an O-ring and a seal. I just took a hammer and a socket and tapped in the new, found one that kind of fit, you know, right, the exact right size, because that's just recessed in there just a smidge. And I'll put some lube on the transmission fluid on the seal and the shaft, and we'll stuff it in there. I gotta put that D down. That's gonna be a bit of fuss getting that back together. Okay, so that thing was a nightmare to get back in, but I did get it in. The reason why it was a nightmare was that little ball there, getting that back in place, and then being able to tighten that nut, hold that in place without that nut, you know, without moving things, so I could tighten the nut up. What I eventually did was I had that piece up in there. This was off to the left side, or the right side of it. And then I put this in and just started the nut. And then once the nut got up to where it would draw it up against that, and that was against the ball, then I reached in from this side and pushed the ball in with my finger, and then pushed this over and was able to tighten the nut up. So that's park, reverse, neutral. That would be drive, which would be second and third only. That's all 3 gears, and low. So yeah, we'll leave it neutral. And so I'm going to get the other shaft in, which has the O-ring. So that's the new O-ring, and there's a little transmission fluid on it to lubricate it. And I'll throw it in. I didn't video this because, well, I did video it, but nothing showed up because, you know, I was in there trying to fuss, and I don't have a tripod that sits at that level, so I'd probably dig around and could find something, but anyway, it's together. So I push this in, and the O-ring seems like it seats better if I seat the O-ring into that and then push this in. So now I got to put on this little piece here, and then the valve body should be ready to go back on. 8 to 10 foot-pounds, I put them at 10. 30 to 35 foot-pounds, I put it at 35. Alright, now I'm going to put these tubes back in place. I just put automatic transmission fluid on them to kind of help seal them up, and then I just kind of start them, and then I'll go to town putting them in. Can't see. There, now it's in. Okay, so then I can push that in, this in. Just make sure they're all Alright, so now we got the shift shaft done, and I'm going to wait and do the tail housing and torque converter closer to when I get ready to put the assembly back in the car. I got to clean this parting surface, so I'm going to cover this up really well and get to it. And I think I'm going to just throw the pan on for the night and call it a day to finish it up tomorrow. This is I gotta get the vacuum modulator off so I can put this back in before I bolt the sump back on in case if I drop this, or if it doesn't go in place, I can get it and retrieve it. So I want to put the vacuum modulator in before I put the sump back on permanently. Alright, that's as together as I'm going to put it for now. I got to put the little rod in and change that and clean the parting surface before I, set it back up to sit for storage. I'm going to do that maybe tomorrow or the next day, and I got to get a wrench, and a thinner wrench to do that. And in the meantime, I think I'm just going to put the sump pan back on to keep things clean, and then I'll tip it down a bit to clean the parting surface, so I don't want any of this stuff in the transmission. Cleanliness is key in the transmission. I didn't even put the valve body in the parts washer. I just kind of left it, and hopefully everything's good in it. The transmission looks really good on the inside. I don't think there's a thing wrong with it. Alright, it's together and pretty cleaned up. So when I get the sump bolted back on, I'll probably repaint the transmission and the sump, the cast iron part. The aluminum part was bare aluminum, but the cast iron part looks like it was originally black. I can see, unless it was overspray from the floor pans or something, which I doubt, because I don't think they would have painted them after the transmission was installed. But I'm going to paint it black, the cast iron and the sump. The rest of the transmission is going to stay bare aluminum. I might paint it with the vacuum modulator off so it isn't painted. Just look nicer. And the dipstick tube was black. I gotta paint that too. That's in the bottom of my parts washer, soaking right now. Hopefully by the end of the week I'll be working on this. I hope by the end of the week or next weekend I'll have the steering gear off, the wheels and tires and brakes and all that stuff torn apart so I can get an idea what I need to order for the brakes. Take care of the leaky steering gear and start getting this all cleaned up and ready to make it look like brand new. So that's it. I'm going to call it a day. That's still sitting there just as it was. So if you like my video, hit the like button. If you want to see this car resurrected, subscribe to my channel. And thank you for watching my videos.